Avoidants never say they're in pain, but they will spend a lifetime remembering the one who walked away. Have you ever walked away from an avoidant? Someone who, when you finally let go, didn't chase you, didn't cry, didn't even flinch, as if you never mattered. But months later, they quietly check your social media, send a subtle, "How have you been?" text, or casually mention that old cafe, just to see if the door between you is still slightly open. You're not imagining it. The avoidance pain is real, but it doesn't look like any pain you've seen before. They don't scream, they don't beg, they don't cry. They sit in silence, replaying every moment they pushed you away, until they realize they didn't just lose you. They lost the version of themselves that only existed when they were with you. Welcome to today's video. How an avoidant shows pain after losing the right person. This is a silent journey where heartbreak doesn't explode, but bleeds slowly from within. Together, we'll walk through every phase, the calm detachment, the distractions, the emotional shutdown, until the haunting realization hits. They were the ones who let go of the only person who ever made love feel safe. If you've ever loved an avoidant, been hurt by their coldness, or you see these patterns in yourself, stay with us. Hit follow and watch till the end, because this isn't just their story. It's yours too, and it's about what you truly deserve. You thought silence made you strong, but really, it was just your way of avoiding the pain you didn't know how to feel. You're used to retreating, going quiet, creating space, letting emotions pass by as if they were never there. Every time she got close, every time the relationship deepened, you stepped back. Not because you didn't feel anything, but because the more you felt, the more you feared losing control. And for you, losing control meant weakness, meant pain. You lived like everything was under your command. Pull away when it's too much. Shut the door when overwhelmed. Turn off notifications. Disappear quietly. No fights, no tears, no drama. But what you don't realize is that quiet exit hurt her more than any fight ever could. She didn't need you to chase, just to show you were still there, and you couldn't. And when she started pulling back, stopped trying, stopped reaching, you thought you were finally free. You told yourself you needed space, that you weren't meant for attachment, that walking away was the right thing. But then, why are you still checking her stories? Why does it sting a little when you see her smiling with friends? Why do you lie awake some nights, missing that simple good night message she used to send? The truth is, you're not fine, you're just delaying the pain. And unlike the anxious types whose pain explodes and spills, yours is silent, slow, but deep. It doesn't hit like lightning. It drips like a leak in the ceiling until the entire house collapses from within. You still think silence is control, but really, silence is emotional paralysis. It's your mind shutting down to avoid what your heart is too scared to process. It's knowing deep down you push too far but being too afraid to own it. And then it starts. Not with a bang, but with slow realization. A night where you reach for your phone and realize you have no one to message. A morning where her favorite song plays, and your chest tightens in a way you didn't expect. You begin to think of her not as the girl who drained you, but the one who saw you, held space for you, and never asked you to perform. You don't tell anyone. You keep the calm, detached mask. But inside, something is cracking. You realize, every time she came close, you felt unsafe. But now that she's gone, the world feels hollow in a way you can't explain. You're not used to this kind of emptiness, not from loneliness, but from the absence of that one person who made you feel whole without demanding anything. You thought you chose freedom, but in reality, you ran away from the chance to be loved in a healthy way. You didn't want to be dependent, but in pushing connection away, you trapped yourself in emotional isolation. You can tell everyone, "I'm fine." But your body knows you're not. Sleep is off. Heart racing when her name pops up somewhere. Craving connection but not having the courage to reach out. You won't say it, but the pain is speaking through the isolation you've buried yourself in. No one might ever know, but you do. Every night, every deleted message, every song that brings her back like a ghost. You think you're strong because you didn't cry, but the truth is, you haven't even touched the real grief yet. And if you don't stop, if you don't sit with your pain, you won't just lose her. You'll lose the part of you that's still capable of loving fully. He threw himself into anything that could distract him from her absence. Work, social gatherings, a few aimless dates. Every morning he woke up telling himself, "As long as I stay busy, I'll be fine." And so he filled his days with things that never truly made him feel alive, just to avoid facing the emptiness she left behind. At times, he convinced himself he was healing. After all, he wasn't crying. He was still smiling, still productive. But inside, something felt disconnected. Like everything he did couldn't quite reach that quiet, inner part of him. He replied to texts, laughed in conversations, nodded through meetings, while his mind wandered elsewhere. Sometimes back to the window where she once sat her day, or that song she used to play every morning. He tried to find replacements. There were women gentle, open, engaging. But the closer he got, the more wrong it felt. Not because they weren't good enough, but because there was still a space in his heart that no one else could touch. He couldn't move on, not because no one matched her, but because he hadn't stayed still long enough to truly feel his own loneliness. And slowly, the distractions started to lose their power. Music no longer soothed him. Nights out felt loud in a fake way. He was present but not really there. Without her, the silence he once craved had become the most haunting thing of all. Silence in the room, silence inside his chest, silence between who he is now and who he used to be when he felt genuinely seen and loved. It wasn't freedom. It was loneliness, the kind that doesn't come from being alone, but from no longer being known. And the hardest part? He had that once, and he let it go without a fight. And then one night, a night that wasn't special, not stressful, not dramatic, he suddenly scrolls back to their old messages. Not to search for information, not to decode anything, just to look, just to touch a part of his life he once had. The texts are old, the emojis faded, but the feeling that rises in him is painfully new, like a wound that never fully healed. He realizes that what he'd been avoiding wasn't her. It was the emotions he only ever felt when she was around. He reads each line and sees it clearly now. All the small things she used to do, the times she asked if he was tired, the times she softened first, the times she waited for him to open up. All the love he once took for granted, now become living evidence of a kind of intimacy nothing in his current life can replace. The memories no longer irritate him, they hurt. Not the kind of hurt born from anger or betrayal, but the hurt you feel when you finally realize just how deeply you were once cared for and how lightly you held it. He passes by that cafe they once sat in. He doesn't even go inside. Just walking past, his heart stutters. Not because of the place itself, but because he now knows that place never had meaning without her. Spaces were only backgrounds. She was the music. This is no longer missing by habit. This has become missing by awareness. He begins to recognize her value not because she was trying to prove it, but because he finally sees the shape of the emptiness she used to fill. And that moment, the moment he stops denying, is when real regret begins. Not the explosive kind that tears walls down instantly, but the heavy silence kind. The kind that says, "I could have done better." The kind that realizes he didn't just lose someone who loved him. He lost the one person who helped him become a version of himself he was proud of, before he ever knew he would need to fight to keep it. This is the stage where he doesn't only miss you anymore. He starts missing himself, the version of him that existed when he was with you. And that is the punch he never saw coming. He didn't just lose a person. He lost a version of himself, a version that came naturally, effortlessly, when he was seen, heard, and loved, without having to perform for love. There were things he couldn't recognize while he was inside it. He thought he was the self-contained one, the emotionally independent one, the one who didn't need anyone. But now, with you gone, he can't find back the man he was when you were still there. You were a mirror that reflected back emotions he was terrified to feel. When he looked into your eyes, without knowing it, he softened. He was more honest, more human. You never forced anything out of him. You simply created a space where he didn't have to defend himself. He didn't know that was rare. He didn't know that was a form of safety he lacked his entire life. He pushed you away because intimacy made him vulnerable. And now, with no one reflecting him back to himself, he feels like he's missing his own center. Like everything he thought was self was just a shell, and the real part of him only existed when you were near. He's beginning to realize you didn't make him weak. Your presence allowed him to not have to be strong all the time. You didn't shrink him. You made him more human. And now, he doesn't just regret losing someone who understood him. He regrets losing the part of himself he became because you touched him. That is the deeper grief. Not the grief of losing a relationship, but the grief of losing a version of himself he could have grown into if he hadn't run. Now he faces this truth. Distance did not protect him. It separated him from himself. And the pain is not only because you're gone. The pain is that he is no longer the man he was able to be when you were still there. After all the silence, after all the days he pretended to let go, he reappears not with an apology, not with love, but with a short, simple message. Hey, how have you been? No calls, no invitations to meet, no mention of what happened, but in the timing he chose, in the way his words are careful and sparse, you know, he's trying to return, not to the relationship, but to the connection that once made him feel real. No one taught him how to say, I miss you. No one taught him how to take responsibility for what he pushed away. So instead of speaking clearly, he hides it behind neutral questions. He brings up an old song you both used to like, a familiar cafe you once visited, a memory, casually mentioned, but you know it's not random. It's a quiet call, a longing disguised as casual. He types then deletes. He isn't sure if you still care, isn't sure if you even read his messages anymore. He's hoping and terrified, afraid you'll be silent, afraid you've moved on, afraid that the door he once closed is now truly locked from the other side. What he doesn't realize is that with every vague message he sends, he's the one getting hurt. Because each unanswered text, each polite but distant reply, is another quiet slice to the fragile hope still clinging inside him. He won't say it, but he feels it. The connection that once made him feel safe is no longer a refuge. Now it's a mirror reflecting the wound he created. He won't say, I want to come back. He can't, because he knows that once he speaks it, all his defenses will fall. But because of that, he stays stuck between two worlds, too afraid to step in, too attached to walk away. And in that in-between, he gets lost again with a longing he can't name and a pain no one sees. Real pain didn't start when the two of you drifted apart. Real pain began when he realized you were no longer standing where he left you, no longer looking back, no longer orbiting around him the way he once took for granted. There was no announcement, no dramatic ending. It arrived quietly. It started when he saw you post less, share less, show up less in familiar places. Then he saw you start new things, new projects, new routines, new people. And slowly, he understood. You had crossed into a new territory, one where he was no longer a reference point. In that moment, whatever fragile hope he held flickered out. All those "maybe we could still fix this" questions became irrelevant because you were no longer standing at the door. And that made his pain sharper than anything before. He begins to realize no one after you gives him the same sense of safety. No one makes him feel understood without making him afraid. No one makes him breathe without needing to brace himself. He can meet many people, but none feel like home the way you once did. And he begins to understand. What he lost wasn't just a woman. What he lost was a rare lived experience where his heart once knew how to rest. Many can offer affection. Few can offer emotional safety. He once had access to that, and he was the one who closed the door. The pain isn't because you left. The pain is because he pushed you away, and now there is no place left to return to. This pain doesn't explode. It lingers, bleeds slowly, consumes him quietly at night, because no one sees it, no one hears it. It's just him, and the cold truth that you moved past him and escaped the loop he never had the courage to break. And he knows, deep down, the most haunting part isn't losing you. It's knowing that he lost the best version of himself when he let you walk away, and there is no path back to it anymore. Not everyone wakes up after loss, but for some, like him, the pain eventually makes them stop. He no longer wants distractions. He no longer has the energy to keep running. He starts sitting still, something he used to avoid at all costs. And in that stillness, the old questions come back, but this time, he doesn't push them away. He starts to wonder, why did I destroy the one thing that actually felt safe? Why does love always make me retreat? He turns to books. He reads about psychology, about attachment styles, about childhood wounds, about how people learn to love when they once were children who never felt held. Every page feels like a mirror, and for the first time, he doesn't look away. He sees himself in every line, the one who looked strong but secretly feared disappointing others, the one who hated dependence, so he kept his distance, The one who said, "I'm fine alone," but had simply gotten used to never being chosen. He realizes avoidance never protected him. It only delayed the pain until it arrived all at once, overwhelming and unmanageable. He sees now. It wasn't that he couldn't love. It's that he never learned how to love without armor. And the hardest part? It's not losing you. It's losing the belief that he could still be someone worthy of a love that deep. Awakening doesn't arrive in a flash of light. It arrives quietly in a midnight moment, reading a sentence that makes tears fall without warning. In a short video, a line in a book, a quote that touches the fear he's buried for years, that he might live his whole life disconnected from his real emotions. From that space, something begins to shift. Not fast, not loud, but real. A new awareness forms inside him, that if he doesn't want to lose again, he'll have to relearn everything: how to feel, how to attach, how to stay when it matters. And that's where a new journey begins. Not a journey to get you back, but a journey to finally come back to himself. And in the end, even if they never say it, they understood. They understood that what they lost wasn't just you, it was the rare chance to experience a love that didn't demand perfection, a love that invited them to stay, even when it felt vulnerable. They know now, too late, that they were once seen, truly seen, and held by something unconditional. And they lost it, not because you asked for too much, but because they never learned how to stay when love got real. You may have told yourself you loved the wrong person, but the truth is, you loved right. You just arrived too early for someone still learning that love is not weakness. It's the only thing that makes the heart truly strong. And if you're on the other side of this pain, please remember, their silence was never indifference. It was confusion, fear, a lack of skill in dealing with their own feelings. But you don't need to stay and wait for them to figure it out. Because sometimes you're not the reward at the end of their growth. You're the one who started it. Maybe they'll remember you for a lifetime quietly, in ways no one else ever sees. Maybe you'll forever be their what if. But you don't need to know that to move on. Because you're not walking away because they got it wrong. You're walking away because you finally got it right, with yourself,